So the first question is, are chickens right for you? This is an Araucana bird that I have right here. I've got 4 of them on display over here, as well as 4 turkeys and 2 ducks. I may have to trade her out. It's pretty hot in the sun right here for her. So when you get chickens, it's kind of a trendy thing to do right now, and a lot of people, they don't think it through, and they find out that chickens aren't right for them after they've already put in all the expense of the coop and the birds and the feed and, you know, all of the fun and the problems that go along with chickens. So, you know, thinking about this carefully, you're bringing, you know, a number of animals into your life. It's I guess it's a commitment, you know, it's a daily commitment to be there for the birds. If you're a person who, you know, likes to jet off every single weekend and, you know, take 2-week trips to Europe, maybe not the best animal for you to get. The other part that I can't emphasize enough is that when you're owning chickens, you know, they get hurt, they get sick, they get attacked by predators, they will injure themselves in the most ridiculous ways, and you know, in addition to the, you know, they get old or they turn into roosters, and you may have to end up putting one of your birds down. So you need to have like a contingency plan for your birds, that if one of them, say, gets a prolapse event and it's in a whole bunch of pain, can you put it down, or do you have someone in your life who can come over immediately and put that bird down so it doesn't have to, like, suffer for 2 days in agony and then die? If you get a chicken that gets sick, are you willing to take it to the vet, knowing that, you know, it's $50 when you walk in the door to the vet, and then they're going to prescribe meds, and there's going to be follow-up visits, and before you know it, you have a $300 bill for a chicken? You know, these are the kind of things you need to think about before you get birds. The other really important thing to emphasize is the poop. You know, they're not just cute, fluffy animals, they poop a lot. And you're going to have to deal with that. And if you're not okay with dealing with that, that's either you need someone else in your life who's willing to deal with that, or you just need to enjoy someone else's chickens on an occasional basis. A lot of people, you know, the first thing they want to do is they want to, like, obsess about the breeds that they want. And that's great. And definitely there's some great resources. If you're looking for, you know, the ultimate chicken website, that would be backyardchickens.com. They have a really nice interactive list of all the different breeds and their personalities, how often they lay, how big they get, what color of eggs they lay, all that kind of stuff. So that's a really good one to look at. And then a lot of people are like, well, this is my situation, and what kind of birds do I get? And to be quite honest, there's I don't know that the, you know, the people who obsess about the breeds, if it's really that important. Like, what if I can't find this breed in my area? Or do I really want to spend, you know, $15 a chick on this rare chocolate Moran? You're probably just going to be as happy with picking up what you get from the feed store as you are about obsessing with the breeds. Well, okay, Chaz brings up a good point. This one is an Araucana. They lay the blue eggs. They are mutant chickens that come out of South America. So, you know, if you want ones that lay a specific color egg, you know, it might be worth looking into that. The most important thing when you're looking at the breeds is how many eggs that they lay. These guys are going to be like a 4 to 5 egg a week bird. They're not as reliable as the sex links and the Rhode Island Reds and so forth. So if you don't eat a ton of eggs, you can get some of the prettier, more ornamental chickens. If you guys eat a lot of eggs, or you're looking to, you know, sell a couple dozen to the neighbor, you probably want to go with something a little bit hardier. If you have little kids, that's where, you know, picking a breed might be more important. If you get a more docile breed, like a Wyandotte, they're, you know, less likely to gouge out your children's eyeballs, but no guarantees there. And then the next question to ask, I'm going to put her down so she can get a little shade here. I have to keep an eye on her. She's already done one escape. So when you're starting off with chickens, especially if you're not, 100% certain, the chicks are very, very fragile, and the chick stage is where the most problems occur, and where you're most likely to end up with deaths. So if you do decide to get chicks, I recommend getting one more chick than the number of birds that you actually want. And that way you're okay if one of them dies. You also have to, be prepared that one of them's going to die in some horribly gruesome way. If you do go with the chicks, you also have to be prepared that even if you buy all, sexed females, because you can buy a straight run, you can buy all males, you can buy all females. Even if you buy all females on the heritage breeds, 1 in 10 of them is going to be a rooster. So then you have to prepare for that contingency. While as there's a number of places around Puget Sound that will sell you what are called pullets, or almost two-laying birds. Those ones are pretty much guaranteed to not be roosters. You're past all the really awful diseases that wipe them out, but on the other hand, you don't get to have the fun of cute little fluff balls, and you may not get to bond with your birds as much. So there are trade-offs to both. Food. So after you've selected the kind of birds you want, you know where you're going to get them, then you have to decide what kind of food you're going to feed them, because you can't just feed them your table scraps and the grass on your lawn. If you want actual eggs from your birds, you're going to need to supplement with a grain. There are a number of really great feed companies in our area. The one that I started my farm on is Scratch and Peck. They are now a certified organic feed. They are a local mill up in Bellingham, and all of their grain comes from Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, and it's a corn-free, soy-free feed. So you really get a nicer, better flavor on the eggs. So that's one thing. If you don't care so much about the flavor of the eggs, or you want to be more economical, you can go with a non-organic feed, and or one containing corn and soy. If you want to have, the highest quality eggs, then you're going to want to look for something organic. There's also this debate among chicken keepers for pellets versus pellets, mash, and whole grain. So Scratch and Peck is a whole grain. The way a chicken system is designed, they don't actually have stomachs like we have. They have what's called a craw on top, or sometimes called a crop, and then they have a gizzard in the belly. And so in both of those places, they're going to have, the official term is grit, but basically, very small rocks in both of those. And they put the grain in, the grain moistens, and then the rocks smash it to pieces. And then it, travels down a little bit, some of the nutrients are absorbed, and then it goes into the gizzard, where it again gets smashed by rocks, and nutrition is absorbed, so on and so forth. It's not the most efficient system. You get like a 65% retention rate when you feed whole grains. But on the other hand, it's what they were designed to eat. So, do you want to be putting in a mash or a pellet if it's not what they were designed to eat? The pellets are the cleanest feed to have around. The grain is a little bit messier. It also depends on, what your birds will eat. What you want them to eat is what you need to start them on. So you can usually convert from pellets to a whole grain. You are never going to be able to convert birds from a grain back to pellets. So, these are the questions you need to decide up front. Most chicks are going to be fed either some version of a mashed up pellet called mash, or they're going to be fed, ground really fine whole grain. So you want to start them on that at a young age. Converting chickens to different feed is never fun. And then when you're feeding, you're also going to want to supplement with oyster shell. I have about 300 birds right now, and there are a couple different products out there. Some of them are just a calcium carbonate that they either pull in like limestone that they grind up, or this one's kind of awful, they grind up old coral. I have no idea how they're mining it, or the sustainability of mining coral, but I tend to avoid those products, in addition to the problematic nature of mining you know, a limited resource for our birds. I don't think that just pure calcium is enough to get really solid shells. So I use an actual crushed oyster shell. Something like a bigger company, kind of like Taylor Shellfish, takes all their oyster shell and they smash them, and then they get sold in bags at feed stores. So that's my personal preference, and my laying, you know, I can tell when they're not getting enough oyster shell because their eggs go back to soft. Yeah, so the oyster shell is what I highly recommend. Also, when you're talking about food, a lot of people really like having chickens around because they'll clean up the compost. One of the things you'll have to debate, and there's, you know, people on both sides, are feeding back crushed eggshells to the birds. I do it. Some people insist that it encourages birds to eat their eggs. I have found that there are actually very few true egg eaters who eat eggs out of spite or just to be jerks. Believe it or not, chickens are jerks. What I've usually found is that the birds that are eating the eggs, either the eggs are soft and they're recycling them back through their system by, you know, smashing the egg, eating the inside, and then eating the shell, or the birds have a major protein deficiency, and that's why they're eating the eggs, because they're trying to get those vitamins and minerals. So when we get to that, when you run into a problem like that, then you want to look at, you know, obviously adding meat into their diet. And this is like a really terrible joke. I'm going to grab this chicken. She's thinking about walking away. No walking away. So, anybody know what a chicken's favorite food is? Chicken. Chaz got it. He's heard this speech a million times. That's right. It's chicken. So chickens are omnivores. They are meant to eat meat. It's entirely up to you. If you're, you know, vegetarian, obviously you don't have to supplement with meat. Some feeds will contain fish meal to balance out the protein. On my farm, our chickens are not 100% vegetarian fed. When we process other animals, we will let the chickens pick through the scraps. Also, if I notice nutritional deficiency or really soft eggs, I will boil bones in a pressure canner until they go soft as bone meal and feed that to them, and that fixes egg problems right then and there. They will not turn down chicken if you give it to them. They have no problems about that. On the flip side, if your chickens are too crowded, they will literally eat each other. It's a major problem in commercial egg factories. It's the reason that they clip beaks. If you ever wanted to know why beak clipping is a thing, it's because they will eat each other if they're bored or they're stressed or they're not getting enough feed. So you do have to watch out for that. Did I mention that chickens are jerks? This is what I'm talking about. So, you know, there's the whole meat and not meat. If you do supplement their feed, you want to make sure that you keep it balanced. Certain foods can throw off their laying simply because it reduces the amount of protein in their diet. Like if you have an apple tree and you have a windfall of apples on the ground and you let the chickens just have as much as they want, they will eat so many apples that they won't have enough protein to actually lay good eggs. So you want to make sure that when you're giving them the table scraps that you're balancing it out. Chickens really should only be eating about 20 to 30% of their diet in green things if you want eggs. And then I'll just mention water dishes really quickly. There's a handful of options right in there. We've got an old pot that broke its handle and it makes a perfect water dish. That's a fine kind of water dish to use. But they will climb into it and poop in it and make a giant mess of it. You're going to have to change it twice a day. There's a lot of them. They're like the clear top with the red, and they're like a self-feeder. Those ones can also be nice, but again, they will climb into them and poop all over them, and they can make a big mess. The waters that I use on my farm, because I just don't want to deal with that, they're called chicken nipples, and they're little red and metal things about this long, and you drill holes into a plastic container and you put the nipple into the container. So we do 3-gallon containers. We put 4 or 5 nipples on the bottom, and then we hang them above where they can easily jump into them, and then they just kind of peck at the nipples, and it lets the water out without giving them an opportunity to defile the water dish on a regular basis. So housing. So there are a million different coop designs out there. You could spend hours on Backyard Chickens just looking through the different pictures of coops. A lot of people, they like to spend a lot of time debating on this kind of coop or that kind of coop. The most important animal, though, that you need to build this coop for is not poultry. It is for you. If your coop is not easy to get in and out of and it is not easy to clean, you will not clean it regularly and you will end up with pests. And you'll end up with rats. And you'll end up with all kinds of other problems. So the most important person to design, or the most important animal to design your coop for is you. So that means, you know, I can tell you my partner designed this. He calls it a chicken Ferrari. I think it's more like a chicken Land Cruiser, but it's like this A-frame, but you have to stoop to get in and, you know, get at the eggs. And every time I go in there, I whack my head at least once, and I hate it. And if it was mine, I would have torched it a long time ago, you know, and roasted marshmallows and then danced around the fire. It would have been great. So, you know, that's a beginner's mistake, and you may end up doing that with your coop, but I highly recommend that your coop is at least, you know, 6 inches taller than you, so you're not whacking your head all the time, that it's easy to get in and out, that it's easy to clean. My nest boxes have removable bottoms, so I can pull them out and scrape them clean. They're just, you know, cheap old pressed plywood, so they clean and scrape off really easily, and then you know, if I have a parasite problem or something like that, I can burn them and build new ones. My chicken coops for about 150 birds are actually about the size of this stage tent. They've got a couple nest boxes inside of them and a couple walls just for enough shade. They cost about $175 with the tarp. And like I said, that's for 150 birds, and they can be built in about 3 hours. That's what, you know, that's what I have decided is the best. And mine are all portable. That's another, you know, debate that you'll have to have. A lot of people have a stationary coop, which can be good, but it can also encourage rats and pests. And by pests, I mean like mites and lice and, you know, those kind of things. So you'll have to decide, do you want a movable coop that you move around the yard that's fully contained? Do you want a stationary coop? Or do you want to have like maybe a semi-movable coop and then you just let the birds free range in your yard? These are all the different choices. For the tractors, which are the, you know, easy to move coops, I highly recommend having them on wheels and something that you can move by yourself with no issue. If it's really a pain to move, you won't move it often enough and they will destroy your lawn. Where are you going? All right, showbiz is not for that chicken.
Well, there goes her contract.
All right, you can stay there for now. Let's see. When you're building your coop, regardless of what kind of coop you build, you want to have a predator-proof coop. So your main predators in the city are going to be hawks, raccoons, and dogs. Okay, hawks are aerial predators, so you're going to want something on top at least, or you want, you know, a large number of trees. So the hawks like to dive bomb like this and then come back up. I've watched them do it on my birds. We've got a couple of eagles and a couple of hawks around that we're constantly chasing off. So if you have an open air coop, you want to just make it so that they have lots of little hidey places in it so that the aerial predators can't get at them. At night you may have owls poach your birds. I don't know if the city actually has any of the big owls big enough to carry off a bird, but definitely something about that size they can take off when they're babies. Raccoons are cute until you come out and see the devastation that they have made in your coop when they will do everything in their power to get in. They will learn to open latches. If you use chicken wire, which has holes about this big or about that big, that's inch to They have 2-inch, 1-inch, and 1/2 inch. They will, if it's not secured properly, they'll just rip the wire right off the coop and go after the girls. If it is secured properly, they will reach their hands in and dismember the birds piece by piece because they're bored. So you'll come out to find, you know, pieces of your beloved chickens everywhere. So I highly recommend that if you have, if you use any kind of wire on your coop, you're going to be wanting a hardware cloth with a 1/4 inch or smaller hole. It's much more expensive than chicken wire, but it's a lot less devastating. And then we use a heavy-duty staple gun to staple that to the outside of the coop or to the run so that they can't rip it off. Anything, you know, I mean, if you can pull it off, they can pull it off. And then the last one is dogs, whether it's your dogs, the neighbor dogs, occasionally cats when they're about that size. That's about the size my cats could. Leave them alone. They'll go for anything smaller than that. Your neighbor's cats hopefully are too fat and lazy to do that, but they can occasionally take out chickens. But once they're full size, they usually leave them alone. It's the neighbor's dog that, you know, so if you don't have a fenced yard that will keep out all dogs, you probably don't want to let your chickens free range because that one neighbor moves in and, you know, there goes your whole flock before you even know it. Dogs also will kill for fun. To them, it's like the squeakiest stuffed animal. And, you know, most of the time when they're killing animals, and we've had a neighbor dog that came over and took out about 40 of our birds over a weekend a couple months back. It was just they were just the awesomest stuffed animals to play with. And it was pretty gruesome to find. Your own personal dog may also decide that your chickens are play toys. So that's something you want to introduce them early on and have a good way to discipline them, or else just keep them separate. Like I have herding dogs, and one of my herding dogs is fine just chasing the birds when they get loose and pinning them, and she's very, very good about that. My other dog, he was a rescue, and he had done some hunting in his life, so we've had to slowly train him back to not actually, you know, hurt the birds, and now he's just to the point where he pulls off a couple of feathers while he holds them down. But he's also a herding dog. A lot of the more common dog breeds, labs, golden retrievers, poodles, these are all bird dogs, and they were bred over centuries to go and retrieve ducks out of the water for hunters. They may never be trainable around chickens, so that's something you have to watch out for, because your beloved dog may kill your beloved chickens, and then you're just sad. Then you have dinner. Bedding in your coop, I forgot to cover that. We use burlap because we get it for free out. There's a nice place out in Renton, Distance Lights Coffee, I think. I'm not sure. It's right by a Boeing field. We get the burlap for free. There's shavings. You want to make sure they're the pine shavings, the cedar shavings. The oil will irritate the respiratory system of the chickens and can cause disease. Some people use straw. I'm not particularly fond of straw because it's not super absorbent, so you have to change it a lot more. So you'll have to research, you know, depending on what type of nest box. Some people in their coops, they'll do what's called the deep litter method. That's something to look into, and then it's a twice-a-year clean out of your coop. But that's something. Do you need me to stop? Okay, so that's something, you know, to definitely look into. They're telling me to stop. So, as I covered before, you know, I'm gonna just cover this again. So you'll have these chickens, and say you get like 5 chickens, and they lay for 3 years, and then they just stop laying. What are you gonna do with them? Or what happens if you get a rooster? Or what happens if the bird gets sick? You know, knowing that information is very important before you start, so you have a plan in place for when that happens. I can tell you, when I lived in the city of Seattle, I knew how to slaughter chickens, and probably 70% of the meat that we ate while we lived in the city was people's laying hens that they just couldn't bring themselves to put down, or accidental roosters, or so on and so forth. It was a good life. Really flavorful birds, and a lot of these birds were overfed, so you got the most delicious chicken fat that we'd render, and you just spread it on toast like butter. It was amazing, but you gotta be, you know, if that's your plan, you know, know where you can, you know, put your birds up for free, and yeah, or learn to do it yourself. That's an option. So 2 resources. I don't do that anymore. I now have 300 birds I'm always trying to kill. So a great resource that I will recommend for anybody who's into any kind of backyard livestock, and there's some gardening stuff, is the Seattle Farm Co-op. Right now they're located just off Rainier at the Safeway, Rainier Beach Safeway. They carry chicken feed at prices that are lower than anywhere else I've seen in the city. They also, you know, have bulk items if you want to supplement their diet with like kelp. They have the oyster shell. They have very knowledgeable staff on hand. Every April they do a chick sale. And they also have a Yahoo listserv, if that, believe it or not, where you can post questions or just post pictures of your animals. They have a nice Facebook group, so you know you can see other people's animals, get help on your questions, so on and so forth. Also, the Backyard Chickens, they have a very active forum. It's not so Seattle specific, but they can definitely help with "my chicken's poop looks funny, why is that?" kind of thing. And the last thing is, now that I've told you all about chickens, like I said, chickens are trendy. I'm going to spend 2 minutes telling you why you should get ducks instead, because chickens are jerks, and they're stupid, and you can't have roosters, so you can never breed your own birds. And they have these claws. I can't show you, but their claws look like this, and their beaks are like this and sharp and pokey, while ducks have bills and they have webbed feet, and so they don't rip your plants out of the ground. Their manure is also not nearly as hot as chickens. They have a much better digestive system, so there's not so much nitrogen in the manure, and it can go directly on your lawn, and it's less likely to burn it out. I usually like to spend a little bit more time, you know, praising ducks. I have maybe 20 at home right now, and I much prefer my ducks to my chickens. They're a lot funnier too, and a lot cuter, and they're a lot, they're less jerks. That pecking order thing you hear about is real, and the chickens definitely do engage in that, and they will, like I said, rip each other to pieces, remove feathers, and so on and so forth. And you see less of that with the ducks just because they don't have weapons for their, you know, front and their feet. So there you go. Did anybody have any questions? Yeah, no, that's the petting zoo license thing. All right, well, thanks for listening. I hope you all end up with birds and no rats.
Are you taking questions?
What's your question?
You got a question?
Well, it's a personal question. So
No. Shut up. That can't be now.
I like hard-boiled eggs. Is there any breed of chicken that produces on every superior eggs to hard-boiled?
Okay, the question is there a breed of chicken that produces an egg that's superior for boiling? This is something I have a really hard time explaining to my customers. So Scratch and Peck, their motto is, you are what your animals eat. That is so very true. The flavor of your eggs is entirely dependent on what your animals eat. If you give your chickens a ton of kale, you are going to have kale tasting eggs. If you feed them hot peppers, you will actually get spicy eggs out. Onions are the same kind of thing. So, you know, so you got to like balance your table scraps. A little bit here and there isn't too bad. But to make the ultimate flavor on the egg, I highly recommend a feed that has no corn and soy, no fish meal in it, and a pretty good diet of mixed greens, grass, bugs. The gorgeous yellow color on eggs either comes from marigold petals, camelina feed, both of which are added to a lot of feeds to give that yellow color. They don't do a lot for the taste. In fact, camelina meal will make them a little fishy. Or giving them lots of grass and bugs. So you can... The ultimate flavor in egg, it's up to you to create, and you can, you know, play with their feed a little bit to make that. But it's 100% what the chicken eats. talking about cabbage here. So he said he likes onions, but it's not, you don't get like a pure onion flavor. The better pure onion flavor would be to just use actual onions or actual cabbage. When they digest the food, it ferments in the belly, and it may not ferment in a nice way like a sauerkraut or a pickle. So you get the flavor, I call it, is cabbage farts. So I breed pigs, and this is a big problem on pigs fed produce, is that they can end up, you get, instead of like, if you feed them too much kale right before slaughter, they end up with cabbage fart flavor, and then, you know, you lose all your customers. So you really want to be careful with that kind of stuff. Even bacon won't fix that. It's the same with meat birds, and it's the same with eggs. So you just got to be careful that you don't give them too much.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you. Yes. So just to continue on today's transition day, and we're going to have a little bit of a panel here just to let you guys know what we do in the community to preserve open space and turn it into places where we grow food. We have several projects that are going to be represented here on stage in just a sec. And yeah, you heard a lot about open space even during the mayoral debate, and it's always been a subject. And our food sovereignty, our ability to know where our food comes from, our ability to have our own stake and raising our own backyard fowl, backyard pork, or anything else that we can do legally in the city is very important. But the other thing we do is we raise a lot of food within the city limits, and the urban agriculture movement is going real strong. So we're going to talk about our stories about how our projects became a reality. And maybe that'll inspire you. Maybe you've seen that space in your neighborhood, that maybe it's one of those substations. Maybe it's just a empty lot that has never been developed, and you have the opportunity to get your neighbors together to organize, to become a power source that gets that secured away from the possibility of full development or the new high-rises and that sort of thing, and turn it into a farm, an urban farm, a place where food is grown, where we don't import and bring in our food from thousands and thousands of miles away. So let me introduce the panel to you if they're ready. They're in full discussion about this whole subject back here just right now. So first of all, I want to bring up from West Seattle Nursery, one of our main sponsors, been our sponsor from the beginning with Green Life Festival. She works for the West Seattle Nursery, my favorite place to go get things. And she's also the director of the Little Red Hen Project. Jen Dow, thank you. Yeah, cheer for her. And I work with Christina a lot on urban farm development. One of the projects we worked with is called Cows, and we have no cows there. But it's called the Community Orchard of West Seattle, of course, the acronym COWS. And we're going to tell you that story. And then also we have Kimberly Leeper here, and she is one of the directors of the Beacon Food Forest, another city property, and a volunteer. But she does a lot of the directing too. I've worked for her before, I know.